two championship contenders giving it everything.
No, Mikey. No, Mikey.
It's lights out.
No, Mikey.
And away we go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pit Stop Pals. Dusty and Gager back with you once again, and we're going to talk about McLaren, and we're going to talk about Red Bull's 11 straight victories. But let's be honest, this is a Danny Ric fanboy podcast, Pit Stop Pals on the Nielson Media Network. Gager, it's happening. Danny Ricciardo driving for AlphaTauri moving forward the rest of the way this season.
I was stunned, Dusty, because you follow, like we were mentioning before, following a few of these websites, not always the best information coming out of them, but three this morning saying that Danny Ric is going to drive for AlphaTauri, and there have been rumblings about this, and I thought it was just to keep the kind of fever going when in off weeks possibly, but wouldn't you know, boom, F1 news comes out. Danny Ric is going to be in an AlphaTauri in Hungary, and I feel bad for Slick Nick, but
it's tough.
I'm here for Danny Ric because after today, Dusty, I started diving into everything, and I saw some old Christian Horner quotes and what he's actually been doing at Red Bull these for the first half of the season here, and they have been so impressed with what he's been able to do in the Red Bull simulator, how he's been able to push the car and essentially giving them a lot of data to use towards their car. So he's been instrumental as that third driver. And look,
is this the step to replace Checo? Like,
you got to think, man, like this is what, like Checo again,
can't qualify,
can't get out of it. Like that just can't happen. And he's battling back. The constructors is getting closer and closer. You see now, you don't only have to worry about Aston Martin and Mercedes and Ferrari, but McLaren's moving up as well. So, this is going to be a great couple races coming up. And to see what all eyes, I mean, you know what helmet cam I'm watching, Dusty.
Oh, of course. I can't wait. I wish the race was this weekend, but we have to wait. So I saw today he was running the Pirelli testing in that Red Bull 19 at Silverstone, and they said his lap time would have put him on the front row. So I mean, well, now it's different scenarios. It's not qualifying, but I mean, But still, it sure seems like he still has it added in with everything else you said. I mean, if we see a situation here for the rest of this season where he's finishing ahead of Checo in that AlphaTauri multiple times, Gager, I think the conversation is completely open for him to be the number 2 driver with Max next year at Red Bull.
Does he even have to do that, Dusty? As long as he finishes ahead of his teammate, I think that's a huge thing. And if he is consistent, like that AlphaTauri isn't bad. Like that's not a bad car.
They're dead last in the standings right now. They've only got 2 points, but
so if he starts getting any sort of points or anything like that, look out, man. This guy is. I could see him wearing the jackets that we are right now next year.
I would have to think that this does mean he's a full-time driver next year, right? Like worst case scenario, he's in this car again next year.
I would have to say, he's going to be in F1 next year.
That's exciting. I like that. That's good. I love it.
I mean, that Drive to Survive series killed him. Hopefully he doesn't go on anymore because it was the unofficial documentary of the fall of Daniel Ricciardo. It seems like the time I started watching it. So, and he's a lovable guy, and everyone talked about, like, that's when I got into this whole F1 fandom. But everyone talked about what a great driver he was, and we saw him win a couple races, of course. But man, I can't wait to see if he can push the pace, because from all accounts, he brakes later. He drives really
He's just
aggressive.
aggressive, right?
Hopefully, we see that fire in him just to do battle and create chaos for the rest of the season here. This is awesome.
It is awesome. It's episode 10, season 2 of the Pit Stop Pals. We're coming right off the British Grand Prix, and there's definitely storylines, but Danny Ricciardo, it's been announced literally like the morning that we're recording this, and you're watching it on Tuesday night. This is pretty fresh news, so we wanted to get into that. Gage, we're in the Red Bull stuff, so we'll quickly hit on that. I know we've got a deeper talk about McLaren here, obviously. Quick side note on Red Bull swag. I was meeting with some people at Boston Pizza here in the Hamptons last night, and some guy came in with his wife and sat down at a booth. We were at one of those middle tables. They were at a booth, and he was wearing basically this. Little bit less advertising, but so I got up after the guy I was meeting with left. I went and took a quick piss, and then I'm walking out, and I had to say it as I walked by him. I said, "Hey, man, nice hoodie." He's like, "Thanks." And that's it. I mean, but I was just like, he's wearing it to be noticed, I would think. And so that was nice. They're out there. The Pit Stop Pals are all around, Gager. And it's tough to get this swag, right? If there was an F1 store in town, I'd go buy all the shit. But there just isn't. So it's tough to get. That's tough to get.
I saw a guy walking the dog yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. And he was coming, and he had a green. It looked like a football jersey, right? Like, but it was green. I wasn't sure. As I got closer, I go, "Is that Aston Martin?" And
Come on.
he was walking towards me and probably thought I was the biggest creep because I'm just staring. I'm not making eye contact. I'm staring at this guy's chest to see what kind of. And I kind of stop and look at him, and and I look up and I see he's looking right at me. So I kind of bury my head. Oh my God, how long have I been staring at this guy? And I waited till he passed, and I looked at the back, and it had Alonso on the back. It was an Aston Martin.
Really?
It was with the green, and I was just, oh my gosh. And
Damn.
as I'm looking back, he turns around and looks, and I'm still looking at him. So I don't know. I might have a date soon or something. But sorry to the Alonso fan in Terwilliger for creeping you out too much. I really admired the jersey you were wearing.
That's a great story too. God, I like it. We are both creeping. It's perfect. All right, Max Verstappen wins again. Red Bull's won 11 races in a row. Gager going back to last year, tying that McLaren record from '88. They've won every race so far this year. I'm not sure I'm at the point where if Max has an off race, Checo all of a sudden is going to pop up anymore like he was earlier in the season. So, I mean, maybe there's some hope for somebody else, but I mean, I think a lot of time in sports when somebody's so dominant, like when Tiger was doing what Tiger was doing in golf, the sport, it was good because people would watch golf and cheer against Tiger. Is that what's happening with Red Bull right now? Do you think the dominance that they've had is that the Red Bull fans are watching because they love seeing Red Bull win, but other fans who know that their team don't have a great chance to win it are there to cheer against Red Bull? Or is it hurting maybe, do you think, viewership?
No, I think this is the part of F1 that's everyone's kind of familiar with. When you see dominance from a team, you start to hate that team or that driver. It's I forget that quote in Batman, is you're the hero for as long as, if you're a hero for long enough, you become the villain, right? And I think that's what happens with Max, and it's the same thing that happened with Sebastian Vettel when he won his, I think, 3 championships in a row. He was so dominant, right? You never even saw him in the race because he just took off. I think what's most encouraging is you hear the chatter on the now on the radio with Max, and he even just in the last race he's going, okay, well, Ferrari's pitting, what does that mean? Like he's I think he's more aware of teams are getting closer. There's still a big gap to close to get to Red Bull, but I think you do see just the way Max is driving is okay. We got to. It's just not going to be a cakewalk here. There's a few things that I have to do to make certain that I'm ahead. Because if we look at the last race, I think that Lando did a great job of kind of sticking with Max.
Well, how about getting him off the jump? My God,
we're unbelievable, right? So there's something with this McLaren, but trying to stay with them after that third lap to get DRS and see if there was something there, right? So you saw Lando kind of push a bit, but then Max, oh gosh, he kind of took off, and then there was a point where they were both putting in the same lap times, and I think just the Red Bull is so good, man. This is a tribute to Max too, but with the tire deg, he's able to manage the car better than anyone. And I think it was a point where Lando, he couldn't keep pushing because he was going to wear out those tires a lot quicker, and kind of just fell into a groove and battled from there. But if they get that under if they figure that out, Dusty, that's I can't believe we're talking about McLaren.
I was just gonna say, that's what I was just gonna follow it up. I said, can you believe that I just said Lando Norris got Verstappen off the jump? And then, I mean, the follow up here with it is that, you know, so many races this year we've seen Max early pull away from everybody. This time it was Max and the two McLarens who had kind of separated. Like the gap between Piastri and everybody else was larger than the gap between Lando and Max, which we just haven't seen this year. So this is an all-time mid-season turnaround. We sat here for the first 3-4 episodes of the season saying, well, McLaren's a non-factor, and how are they possible? And now all of a sudden they've passed Aston Martin, Mercedes, and Ferrari and look like the biggest threat to Red Bull. Like if Lando Norris is the first non-Red Bull driver to win a race this year, or I'll shit my pants, like from where it was before. So like this right now, I know, you know, Red Bull's dominance is one thing, but this McLaren turnaround for next year's documentary is the biggest story of the season so far.
Well, he was great last race too, right? And that was when they first brought the upgrades. Yeah. Piastri didn't have them, and you're like, okay, well, maybe there's something to this a little bit. You throw it on Piastri, and they're both at the top. This is crazy. This is just unbelievable. Maybe it's just the silver that they put on that McLaren, which looked absolutely awesome, by the way. They should keep that livery for sure. But no, I mean, and all this talk about Oscar Piastri being a talent in his own right, and good to, like, without the safety car, that's a double podium for McLaren this weekend.
I know,
and that is so crazy from where we were. I mean, I was slagging him big time at the end, making fun of Hernan buying that crappy hoodie thing. Yeah, so he was probably
horrible timing.
That's come out of the closet. I'm sure he hasn't taken it off yet.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, do we expect, because most of the upgrades we've already seen, Gage, are kind of in there now, right? Like, and it's there's no summer break really this season. Hey, it's just 2 races in each of the months, and so I think like most of the upgrades. And there'll be changes, obviously, with different parts here and there the rest of the way this season. But is there anything of significance you think still coming? Or is all of a sudden McLaren now in that pack with Alonso and Ferrari, if we can say they're in there, and Mercedes to battle for second place in constructors and basically second overall behind Max?
I hope so. You know, seeing just a couple steps Mercedes made now, and Ferrari did seem to do a little bit better last couple race, not so much last race, but they seem to move ahead a little bit. But Aston Martin is kind of puzzling to me.
Yeah, they are.
Because with the amount of wind tunnel time that they are capable of doing this year, and I just felt, okay, well, we're going to see them. I thought the jump from them would be the most out of that middle pack so far. Maybe it's coming. I don't know, but these are, Lance Stroll hasn't been as good as he was at the start of the season. Alonso is still battles, but seems like he just doesn't have the car underneath him that he had at the beginning of the season, where, I mean, it was just them and Red Bull, right? So he's having to do a lot more. So maybe we see something in Hungary. Usually what everyone has been saying is this is the race where you kind of bring those last tweaks, those big upgrades.
The Hungary race, yeah.
Yes, and that's it. And then that's kind of the shift to next year begins of looking forward to the next car, right? So we'll see in Hungary, and we'll see what happens there.
Have you dove into the tech talk on this McLaren ride right now?
I haven't yet. I've been watching just the passing. Some of the passing this weekend at Silverstone. Silverstone's a great track. 500,000 people over the weekend.
Oh yeah, that was nuts.
It's just camping out for the weekend in the English countryside.
Brad Pitt's there recording a movie. Like,
I mean, I would have given anything to be. Christian Horner invited all the drivers back to his place for barbecue after you saw. I mean, I would have given anything to be at that barbecue. It's just, I don't care what you're cooking. Oh, I'd be singing with ginger spice. It would have been the best thing ever. But no, I just, it's, yeah, I unbelievable weekend for F1 racing. I that track with the high speed corners. And you know, the thing about the race that I was hoping, because the shots of the dark clouds in the background, I go, okay,
just a little sprinkle, give it to us.
Just give me a little bit of the wetness, and let's try to end on inters or full wets.
We couldn't be the only people who, when they said, I can't remember, one of the teams said to their driver, "Looks like it's going to miss us." I was like, shit. I was really hoping. Except always for George Russell, who's like, "You might want to check again. I've got some spray." And I think Crofty was like, "This might be sweat there, George."
Meteorologist George Russell at every race.
It's just always is sweaty and thinks it could be 35 degrees and sunshine, and Russell would be like, "I think it's raining. I think it's raining right now." So that was interesting. Where do we come out on McLarens? We are not McLaren for Mercedes. We'll get to Ferrari in a second, because I mean, that just find new ways to disappoint. But you know, Lewis gets the bonus from the safety car, gets himself on a podium. I thought he had a good drive anyway, but where do you come out on that finish?
Battled again, Lewis. I mean, establishing himself still as the number one compared to George, right? So I think that's important for him. He's talking about watching that McLaren on the straights, and what was really probably the most disheartening is he's on softs, and McLaren decided to go hards, right? So I was under the impression, poor Lando. We thought
for sure that he was going to pass him, no problem.
And he tried, and you saw the racecraft of Lando Norris. You know, you always hear them talk about how good these guys are, and if they can, and then you finally see some of the capabilities they have when they actually get a car underneath them and what they can actually do. Lando was just amazing. Imagine him on softs. Who knows what he could have done at that point.
Well,
right?
That's why he was so hyped when McLaren got him. Remember, they're like, "Oh man, McLaren's got Lando Norris. Here we go." That's when they had him and Danny Ric, right? It was a big deal. Like,
So, man, I just, for Mercedes, it just seems like from last week, and Toto telling Lewis, just drive the car, Lewis.
Yeah,
we know
just
it's
drive the
car. But they're still getting on podium, so they're close. I think they're really close. It's just, we're probably not going to see anything really big from
what they're going to be the rest of the year.
The rest of the way, and just it's going to depend on the type of track and the conditions of the track on how if they finish on top of the podium.
I do love, I'm sure you probably saw it on Twitter too, but after the race, Lewis, like, looking at the McLaren, like, people are like, "Oh, Lewis is up to it again," and he's like, trying to get a look at it. I thought that was pretty funny. And then I also saw after the race when he said to Lando, he's like, "Wow, you got a rocket ship there," and Lando was like, "Calm down, like, just it's always so." And then there's Ferrari, man. Qualified okay, and I mean, it looks like the car is not a race car. It's great for qualifying, but what's going on there? Like, I just don't get it.
Well, and Carlos in the previous race, I thought was on fire. Like, he was ripping through guys. So I thought, okay, well, maybe things are, and it's just, again, just how do you feel about this strategy, or what are we going to do here? They need someone to just take the reins and make all the decisions. This is what we're doing, and just stick with it.
Everybody else shut up. We're calling the shots. Like
the amount of times where the driver and Carlos doesn't trust his pit wall. That's the thing. Okay, what we should do that? I don't know. Like, it's just, they're not a team. They're completely separate individuals. And I thought that's what was going to be fixed going into this season, Dusty, is they were going to be because that's what Mattia Binotto talked about. They need to be a more cohesive unit and all be together on this. And it's I don't know. Everyone's going in different directions with Ferrari. It's sad. It's actually sad watching Ferrari and looking at the look on those guys' faces after the race, because I think they shouldn't be where they're at. They should be closer. They should be way closer, and they're just not.
For anybody who's listening right now, let me just give you the constructors' standings right now. Red Bull's at 411 points. Mercedes now at 203. Aston Martin's at 181. Ferrari's at 157, so a pretty good chunk back. And then McLaren is only at 59. But Gage, when you look at Mercedes and Aston Martin and Ferrari and McLaren and what we just saw from McLaren, I mean, if they're able to put together some double podiums here, they could probably move up that pretty quickly. And of the teams we've watched lately, I think as far as double podiums go, I mean, they're certainly capable of being the team that can pull that off the next little while here.
Well, I do believe the last kind of mini summer Belgium's another sprint race, correct? So if they can put together a good sprint weekend and get some extra points, that even closes the gap even quicker before this break. I think that's the most important thing for McLaren. Finish strong, right? Take these last couple races until that mini kind of break and go from there. If they can get within striking distance in the construction and put some points in the bag here, that would be huge for that whole team going into the second half of the season.
We won't have another episode before Danny Ricciardo makes his AlphaTauri debut. So let's do this. And obviously the PitStop Pals on the Nielson Media Coolbet Network. So you can bet on every F1 race at coolbet.com. Tough to find some value sometimes, unless like Max qualifies poorly and starts at 9th and it's still favored to win, but it's not by as much. You can probably get some value there. But Gager, are we looking at, and we'll do a recap obviously after Hungary, but is there, AlphaTauri's got 2 points so far this year. Does Danny Ricciardo deliver a top 10 for them in his first race?
I think he does.
Yeah,
I really think he does. Yeah, I mean, Yuki's been pretty good.
Yeah,
Yuki's been good in that car.
He's been around it.
Yeah, and look, it's supposed to be quite similar to that Red Bull car, and he's been in the simulator this whole time. It's not. Yeah, he hasn't been in a full race. That's going to be very difficult and quite physical on him, but
it's a car he should be very familiar with, right? Like
he's been it in the past. He's been with the team. He's been with the construction of the car as well. I just think it suits him really well to be at AlphaTauri and hopefully putting up some points. Like it's gonna be crazy watching him a couple weeks. This is gonna be great.
It's gonna be really fun. I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be great. Can't wait to be back breaking that down. Episode 11, season 2. That's gonna do it for episode 10. Our breakdown of the British Grand Prix and obviously the return of Daniel Ricciardo to a full-time seat in the Formula One circuit, which is pretty awesome. Welcome back, Danny Ric. And hey, just a heads up: if you do wear F1 gear around the city, Gager and I are probably gonna eye you up pretty good. So, but I mean, if you're wearing F1 gear, I feel like you're kind of looking for it. Like if I wear my hoodie out to the grocery store or something, I want somebody to be like, "Hey, did you watch the race this week?" This starts much more of a conversation than a million people wearing Oilers jerseys in town. You know, like it's different.
Yeah. I get people looking at this if I exit the house with it. I'm so delicate with it though, Dusty. This is like
looks like it's
hung
framed.
Like yeah. It's got its own closet.
Well, because yours is a jacket, right? Like mine's a hoodie, so it's a little bit different. Yeah. Either way, we look terrific. Gager, we'll talk to you in a couple weeks, buddy.
All right, buddy.
The 2 championship contenders giving it everything.
No biking.
It's lights out.